All right, we are live.
All right, let's just go ahead and start. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um. So the first question we have is, why did Kaupio choose to incorporate Hawaiian legend or tradition into his story?
Um, well, he is Hawaiian.
Of course.
Um, so I think that maybe he had a close relative explain all these legends and stuff to him, and he probably just relates with it a lot. So why not put it in his book? He knows so much about it and he relates to it, and he probably wants other people to learn about it as well. Because a lot of
Yeah.
Hawaiians, especially that live here, don't know a lot of this stuff, sadly. So maybe he just wants to get people to know it more.
hmm Yeah. And he was in the book. I remember he had this close relationship with his grandmother, and so like what you mentioned that he might had a close relationship with other relatives. So his grandmother was telling him like stories about Hawaii, and then incorporating traditions and legends allowed him to appreciate the culture even more and what he's been seeing, like natural beauty and everything in the island, on the island. So
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, he wants to bring more awareness about the Hawaiian cultures. Because I don't know, for me, it's not very familiar. Before I got here, I don't really know much about Hawaiian legends and cultures. And I think incorporating it in the book, I mean, it's gonna help a lot of people, and it's also gonna help the Hawaiians. They're gonna be respected, and people will know more about their traditions, their cultures, and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, um, for I think he used it just to show part of, to show our culture as Hawaiians. Most of what you learn about being Hawaiian is passed down to you through stories,
hmm
through traditions, through chants, through song, through dance, and it's passed on orally from one person to another. So I think he used it. So I think he incorporated all of those, um, not only to show parts of our culture, but also um to tie what, because it says that he was a painter, he was an artist. But
yeah,
so I think he did it just to bring everything full circle.
Mm-hmm. All the imagery and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the images.
all right. Anything else to add on that? To add to question number one.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And for number two, it says, in what ways does Kaupia make Hawaiian tradition relevant for contemporary readers?
So contemporary meaning like us, right?
Yeah.
So I think kind of what we said in the first question, um, just because it's like it's teaching you about like a culture, and the little boy is, he's not in our age group, but like someone in his age group could read this book and understand it. So just having like younger characters and like having the book revolve so much around family, I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
And it's just like he just puts like such a impact of like a story that's like tragic, but also like, you know, it's super loving. So all these emotions that we have, he kind of implements in the story. So I think that's how we can relate to it a lot.
Mhm.
What was the first part of that question again?
Like, in what way does Korea make Hawaiian tradition relevant to Yeah, I feel like what he stood for in the book helped. I would relate to him. I mean, not that I was homeless, but like what he was going through when he was homeless and being a little kid at the time, I can relate to him how difficult it is to not have someone to rely on and get that support that he needs as a kid at such a young age. It also represents that his struggles to survive, um, like he was struggling to survive after suffering these experiences at such a young age. I am repeating myself. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that's what I think.
How he relates traditional. That's it.
Um, I don't know, for me, I really like the part where he already found Mariah Wong. And then, like, Mariah explained to him the meaning of his name, Ikaw Kalani, is that it? And so, like, there's like a significant meaning to that name. You know, they're gonna help other people, and it really reflected him. Like, he used to help people a lot. He used to like give food to them, even just like not keeping it to himself. He shared it, and then when people were dying, like the one in the bus stop, he helped the person. And so, I mean, the author was like trying to prove a point that Hawaiians are kind people. Because for some people, they think that Hawaiians, they're not really, I mean, there's only a few of them. And so they tend to think that, they're different. They don't really know who they are. But, through this story, I think he really made a point that, Hawaiian people are good, especially in their cultures and their traditions.
So I think he took his own stories, his own personal experiences, and for me, even though you don't necessarily, you're not, maybe you haven't experienced the same things that he has, but using the personal experiences, we can all think about a time when life wasn't as easy for us or whatever. We can look at, um, something that for him, the death of his grandma, the death of
Hmm.
Hawaiian, him being homeless, but at the end it shows, even that he's homeless, that he still has a good life. So it pretty much still has a happy ending.
Hmm.
Um, but it's something that, okay, um, something you can relate to because it's real problems.
Yep.
Um, yeah, it's real problems, and I think it was a pretty easy read, very emotional, and so when I was reading about just just the things that he remembers about his grandma and stuff like that, I can already, for me, I'm thinking generation wise that this happened about the same time like as my great grandmother. So when he's talking about his grandmother, it's maybe about the same time as my great grandmother. So brought up a lot of family stories, and but I think what's interesting is the problems that he addresses in the story still apply to contemporary readers, and especially contemporary Hawaiian readers. So
Not just
I've
any.
I've told people I'm half Hawaiian, and me being half Hawaiian and reading this book, it addresses the issue of being homeless, of homelessness in Hawaii. It also addresses the issues of the and the struggles of cultural identity for Hawaiians living in Hawaii. Like how it had, his description, what he looked like, and how people still called him stupid Haole. That was actually the um that was actually one of my quotes. Was on page 5. He wasn't bad looking, and even though he was part Hawaiian, for years other children had called him stupid Haole. And so for him, he's struggling in this entire book. He struggles with his own identity, even being Hawaiian, not having his mom and not having his parents around, be raised by his grandma. Like that's the typical story back then. Children being hanai, adopted by their grandparents, and so still his issues back then are still current issues right now, and so I think there's still it. The book is very relatable, even for maybe not even just Hawaiians, but how it was mentioning like Native Americans. I know that Native Americans are going through the same kind of problems, so cultural identity, especially as the generations continue on.
Yeah, and thanks for that. And it's not just Hawaii. Right here. I feel like it's a Polynesian thing. Although you're raised by your grandparents and your uncle. I'm so sorry. I'm so sick. Um, so, any more to add for number 3, for number 2? Anything else?
No.
Number 3, how does race affect the relationships of characters in the novel? Gender, class, give examples, including page number.
Need some water?
I'm drinking water the whole day.
Oh no.
I want to help you. That's okay.
Okay, so for question 3,
It was how does gender, race.
how does race affect the relationships of characters in the novel? Gender, class, give specifics. So the first thing that like popped to my head was Hawaiian, just because, well, obviously his name is Hawaiian, and I think the boy relates to that because he is part Hawaiian, and I feel like that's the part that he doesn't understand about him, that he wants to understand and he knows it's important, but he doesn't like he doesn't know what his name means, and he obviously wants to know if he like has those feelings of it's nice to hear it, but I'm ashamed to have it because I don't know what it means. So so Hawaiian I think represents like the first step to him finding himself and like finding out who he actually is and what his name means. Let's see. So when they meet, on so I don't know what page this is, but it because I have it on a Kindle, but it's 376 of whatever. But it says, everybody call me Hawaiian. He said, "What your name?" The boy hesitated. He hated the fact that most people could not pronounce his real name properly, but he didn't know what to say instead. To avoid explaining himself, he said, "I'm Hawaiian too." So even like to other people, he would say his name was like a shortened version of his actual name, which was I can't pronounce it, but yeah. So he would say that to people that weren't, I guess, made as Hawaiian in the book. But to this guy, he said, "Oh, I am Hawaiian too," just so that he can relate to him. And he was like in the same, I guess, like class as him. Like he was also homeless and he lived in the same park and everything. So I think he was able to open up more with that guy than anyone else in the book so far before or when he met him. Yeah.
For me, I think the part that I remembered was like just because he was homeless, like he belonged to the lower class, people like treated him differently. Like especially when he went to McDonald's, and then like the Filipino cashier was like irritated at him because he's just he's poor, he doesn't have money, and then there he is buying food from McDonald's. And I think it was from page 40. And he grabbed the cookie and shuffled off, suddenly realizing, oh wait, yeah. Sorry sir, that's 5 cents, when he was asking for a cup of water. And then what, 5 cents for one cup? And then the woman was getting irritated. You had 5 cents? And then no, he whispered, and then please leave, sir. Next. Yeah, so just because, he doesn't have money, like people started treating him differently, like in a bad way.
Yeah, and I feel like it wasn't just him that who was being treated this way. It was everyone. That it was all the homeless really in Moana Park. I feel like, and then through these daily experiences that he was going through, we see firsthand the effects of bullying, um, disposition faced by these homeless people, and drug abuse, mental illness. So like what you said earlier, Q, that it's not just these things are not happening only in the book. It's real life, social problems, community problems. And it's really sad to see how these people are being treated by their own or high class.
Yeah, it's like saying that it's hard for the lower class people to develop this good relationships with the high class people. But based on the book, I mean the low class people, the homeless, they really have a good relationship just because they belong in the same, class. But when it comes to the higher class, I mean, it says that, it's like hard to develop a relationship with them.
Relationship, yeah.
Um, I was thinking along the lines of gender. How gender affects the relationships of character in the novel. So the first thing that came to my mind about that was his relationship with his grandma, and he sees that maternal relationship in the relationship with the old Chinese woman, Gladys Liu. And what best sums that up? Sorry, I'm looking for it. I remember he had mentioned that it was the first time over here, page 111, when he says, he said, this is the first place that has felt like home to me in a long time. For him, it's interesting of his relationship with Hawaiian, only because he didn't have a relationship with his father. Didn't even know his father, but and he always talks about his grandma, refers back to his grandma, dreams about his grandma, and then also talks about his mom. And so it's pretty easy to see that he takes more towards women, especially those who are who have more of a motherly figure, or more especially to Gladness, who's more of a motherly figure to him. And I think had it been, maybe an old man, that he might, like, if it was an old Chinese man. This is actually kind of part of the next question too, but had it been an older man, he probably would have been more reluctant, I feel. Not that he's not a good person, but when you find, someone who resembles someone that you hold dear to yourself, you're more sympathetic to them, or you're more empathetic to him, especially since Gladness it doesn't mention that she has any kid, like that it's her by herself in the house, just like how it used to be just him and the grandma. I think what was also interesting about his relationship with Gladness is that she's Chinese, and it might not have been as common back then or even his time, but I'm pretty sure if he's Hawaiian, he's also some kind of Asian as well. Me being Hawaiian, I'm also part Chinese, and most Hawaiians are either like part Chinese, part Japanese. Usually one of the two, just because of the plantation history of Hawaii. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing this. All right. Should we move on to the next question? Thank you guys. Kind of talking, touch base on the question, on this next question with your previous answers. And it says, when do two or more of the above factors come together to influence the way a character is treated or interacts with the world? Again, give specific examples. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't really understand this question that much.
It's just like how race and gender and class, like any combination of those, influences how a character is treated or interacts with the world. My thought about this one was, So him being Hawaiian, and him being a male. Well, there was two ideas that came to mind. Um, him being Hawaiian and him being male, and then also usually lower class. Um, in the beginning, he talks a lot about nature. He talks a lot about nature, and throughout the entire book, he's describing the way that he describes things is very artistic. He uses a lot of imagery in the entire book. And for someone who is, well, Hawaiian and low class and also a male, um, his I want to say his interaction with the world. Yeah, his interaction with the world. Even his age too. I'm surprised that he's 14 years old and thinking about this kind of stuff, or he's going through the things that he's going through. But usually Hawaiians, their relationship with nature, their relationship with land, and Hawaiian males or females doesn't matter. But their relationship with land is a strong one. If you guys know anything about um a little bit about the history of Hawaii, I think we had a little bit of it in our reading and in our pre-reading as well, that we believe as Hawaiians, we believe that that pretty much in general, that if you take care of the land will take care of you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that the Hawaiian gods that are in our culture, there's a god for everything. There's a god for everything living, and not only for the weather, but for the world and everything that happens in there. But those beliefs, and then being a male, usually the lineage that you remember is your father's lineage. So it's actually interesting that he because his father's not Hawaiian, obviously, so it's not his father's supposedly Haole. He remembers his lineage from his grandmother, and the lineage itself, and then him being a male, that's him. He knows, like, it comes to the end that he knows when he finally realizes like who he is, what his name means, and that him being the last person, he needs to pass it on in his line. Well, not the last person. It says he has other family, but that continuation of beliefs, practices. He practices like his grandma La'au Lapa'au, which is medicinal healing with the use of plants and herbs, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what you said before about the class, like he's homeless and him being a male, and especially him being younger, like in the book it talked about, I think it was Hawaiian who was asking him like these questions like, or are you into drugs or alcohol? Did you run away from home? Like, are you just rebelling? Because when you see someone that young on the street like that, you automatically think those things. Like, you don't think, oh, he's just in a really bad circumstance where his family died. You automatically think, something's going on. He's just being a horrible person. So that's just what our natural thinking is. I don't know why, but so based on like those factors, there's a quote in the book. It says, again, it's like not the right page number, but it says, when he was in the park smiling at everyone who was passing by, says all ignored the boy's greetings as if he had the plague. Some even snickered and whispered to each other. So just because he was obviously homeless, younger, and a boy, and even Hawaiian, really, because in some movies Hawaiians are portrayed as just like these like mean people that just don't respect other races. um, these like tourists, especially because it's Ala Moana, so like that's tourists like central over there. They all just don't, they ignore him, or they don't want anything to do with him, or they like, we see homeless people, we usually like avoid them. So that's what they were doing to him. So based on all of that, they just assumed that he, was going to do something to them, or like, steal something from them. I'm sure. So yeah, those are all the factors those characters, yeah, there was a lot of examples of that in the book, how he was, seen as this really bad, negative thing.
Oh shoot! What did I just do?
Yeah. Actually, was I gonna say, like, there was this part of the book where he kept on saying aloha. The Hawaiian culture, like they like to say aloha, and it's like a sign of hello or love, something like that. But then, even though he was being friendly to everyone or spreading his happiness, people still ignored him. Like they don't want to go near him just because he's homeless. I think it was in page 12. Yeah, it says, he smiled and waved to them as well. They looked at him with great fright. Aloha, he said. One stared blankly at him and immediately swerved to the side to avoid touching our
Awesome. I mean, despite all the, I think despite all the negativity that he was facing from people, which is those around you, one thing that I found from reading the book is that he actually found himself when like he understood who he really is by people that were showing kindness to him, like college students and people at fast food, workers at fast food, and then other people, and this allowed him to discover who he is, which also allowed him to connect his amazing gift with his incredible past, and I think it really did heal him, even though he was going through all these things at this time. I think he took one positive thing and try to heal from that and try to connect his his gift with his family's past lives. So I really love that he had that positive attitude, although he was going through all these things caused by other people as well. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Yep. Okay. Last question. If your member should share a thesis statement that tells the novel's message about a particular theme.
I don't have a set thesis yet, but I'm actually still been debating between two things. I wanted to talk about the issues that Hawaiians have with their cultural identity, Hawaiians living in Hawaii, specifically, or I think I wanted to talk about how Hawaiian culture still influences Hawaiians today, like the influence that it has in Hawaiians today. It just is actually what has been interesting. This being what this is our third book, is every single book has, to me, has some kind of cultural identity struggles. but out of all the books, I'm most connected to this one, only because I am Hawaiian, and like him, he doesn't speak Hawaiian. I don't speak Hawaiian. Um, and just I don't know. I was even thinking about doing the homelessness issue, as well. But yeah,
Mhm.
I'm still debating. Most likely though, I think I wanna do the struggles of cultural identity, the struggles that Hawaiians face today with their cultural identity.
Cool. Yeah, the ones again, I don't have a like you don't have like a thesis statement, but some things I've been like thinking about are like small acts of kindness because there's a lot of those in the book. Even though there's a lot of negative in the book, there's also a lot of like um, acts of kindness by random people, like when they were giving him food and like even the pigeons, like small acts of kindness from the birds or whatever they not pigeons, but they were other birds. And then like gladness and Hawaiian, and also the connection that here, like I took the Hawaiian class at school and stuff, and the connection that Hawaiians have with nature and how, like you said, if you take care of nature, it takes care of you. And just because the boy, he was like, when he would go anywhere, he would pick up trash and throw it away. He like even got a bag and everything. So like taking care of the land is also a very big theme, along with the other one.
I don't know. For me, I think I'll just focus on how having a different race or culture or belonging to the lower class will, affect how people treat you. Something like that.
Um, Ashley, say that again, please. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm gonna focus on how having a different race or culture or belonging to the lower class will affect how people treat you.
Some other themes, some other themes, main messages I was thinking about was um this book is the whole time I think about is that everything happens for a reason kind of thing. Um, and another one that I didn't think about, but now having gone through the questions is how how specifically for this book is how Hawaiian cultural beliefs affects the way that the main character that Ikau Ikalani interacts with other people and also his surroundings and the land. Um, him having more knowledge and being more connected to the land affects the way he views life. Um, which also happens the same, with other people as well. Um, yeah, that was just a few other thoughts about. I'm not sure about yet. What about you, Tash?
Well, I was reading in chapter, I think it was chapter two, in chapter two where he was flying up at the tree and he was learning the species and then just observing how the ants are working together. And then it says the lessons of the ants. And I was just thinking about how important it is to not be distracted, by other things or by negative things, but focus on what matter most. It's kind of the theme that I when I was reading this chapter. And at page 11, he realized how much the survival of the entire colony or the human race is dependent on the total participation of each individual working as a collective. So I'm quoting what he said in the book. So I feel like, in order for us to survive in this world, we need each other and we need to focus. We need to be the change and make a difference. So it's kind of like the theme that I have felt was necessary for what I was reading.
Well, where did Tosh go?
I can see it. Oh, it's like frozen. Cool.
Tosh, you there?
Well, that was the end anyway. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know
Maybe
what
her
happened.
connection just got lost or something.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to point out with that quote that she just pointed out how much the survival of the entire colony. The one word that I replaced to make it relevant to myself was how much the survival of the entire culture, Hawaiian culture, I guess 2 words, but culture depended on the participation of each individual. Um, to me, with I don't want to call it the with oh Tasha left. Yeah, I think hers unfroze. We had just everything anyways. But um with the way that Hawaiians are trying to fight for Hawaiian rights and access to land and certain stuff that it's I always feel like if I'm not participating, if I'm not bringing awareness to current issues, or if I'm not teaching my daughter or my husband who are and like my husband who's not Hawaiian, if I'm not teaching them my culture, then I'm not doing my part to keep my culture alive. Um, yeah, I just want to say that.
I agree.
Any questions? Yeah, her
Yeah.
connection got lost.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay.
All right. Well, that's it. So I'm gonna stop the broadcast now.